Ya lo hace. Pierna derecha, directo al arco. ¡Golazo! ¡Golazo!
The world of football with a soccer perspective. This is Soccer Today with Duane, Rollins and Kevin Laramee. Live on the Sports Podcasting Network.
And good day, good night. Welcome to Soccer Today for November 21st, 2017. Joining me as always on the line, Duane Rollins in Toronto. Duane, how you doing today?
I'm nervous.
Me too, but I'm nervous because Karabag will have a few bag scored against them. But tonight, Toronto FC and Columbus Crew, first leg in Columbus. Yeah, it's time. The break's over.
Yeah, and it came up, I mean, I'm not going to say it went quick. It is a ridiculous break in the middle of the playoffs, and they've got to figure out a way to deal with this. It really kills all momentum unless you're in those four cities. Like, obviously, Columbus, Toronto, Houston, and Seattle are focused on this and are ready to go and are excited by it. But if you're living in Colorado, or if you're living in New England or what have you, I just love how I just pulled the two state name titles off the top there.
Yeah.
Boston and Denver. You've lost it. And I remember this as a TFC fan. As much as I'm an MLS guy, it was only because I was podcasting or blogging. Generally, I was still paying attention, because had I not been, it would have been all about, Austin Matthews. Well, not back then, but you know what I mean? It would have been about the local sports scene, and you would have forgotten about MLS at that point. So they've got to figure it out, Kevin.
Yeah, it's the international break. The solutions are not necessarily plenty. Like, what could you do? You could skip one round. Yeah, well, you skip one round to make sure they finish before, or you even you add one so it's finished later. So the momentum that you lose, you have more chance to get it back after. I don't know. There's no clear solution unless you make it a four playoff team, two on each side, and just semifinals and MLS Cup final. It's going to be difficult to have them finish before that November break.
There is no clear solution. You're correct. There's no clear solution that MLS is going to entertain. There is a clear solution. You just nailed it. It's to reduce the playoffs to something that's more reasonable.
Which will never happen because sponsors, because Audi MLS Cup playoff, because of all of the above. They need those dates to make the year a little more profitable.
Yeah, look. MLS playoffs are both too expansive and too short at the same time. It's an odd combination, right? Like, you play it because they're so expansive, because you have 12 teams in the playoffs. It's ridiculous how quickly, it's ridiculous to me that Toronto's season could have ended by a bad bounce in the 90th minute last week or 2 weeks ago, right? Because they had so many points. They shouldn't be that quick and out, but they could have been, and that's just the way the playoffs are. And I accept that because that's the reality. But when you look at it, intellectually, it doesn't make any damn sense that a team that finished that much ahead of another could be eliminated so quickly. So they need to, at the very least, find a way to better, giving them one round bye, I guess, is something. But nonetheless, it's a bit silly that you're, the top teams in the conference can get killed so quickly and the season can end. I mean, MLS loves to taunt or to put out there that the sixth seed wins the MLS Cup final. I don't find that charming at all. I don't find it charming in the NHL either when an eighth seed wins either. To me, it seems wrong, but that's maybe my
What were you doing during the regular season? Why weren't you winning then?
No, yeah, exactly. And this is the boat that sailed a long time ago. But it's a bit weirder in MLS because they don't make a lot of money in the playoffs. I think it's just more of an idea that they have going on.
Yeah, it's funny. I remember Seattle. You have the regular season games, 66,000 people. I think that's 4 years ago. 66,000 people. Then the first playoff game, 22. You're like, yeah, that short turnaround is tough to sell tickets.
Yeah, unless, look, it's getting better. But certainly in the early days of the knockout round, well, and even this year, you look at Houston's attendance, and it was absurd. Columbus's attendance, before all of the stuff started to come out, was pretty bad too. I think it's going to be a sellout tonight, and there's a lot of excitement there. But that's a conference final, and by the time you get to a conference final, you are going to sell them out. But I think that's the solution. You finish the regular season, you give I don't even mind 2 rounds. I am one person that does actually like the home and home. That is a traditional way to do things in this sport. Give them a week off after the regular season, so you skip that knockout round altogether. I'm okay with having 6 teams in the playoffs, 3 in each conference. So you have 2 play 3, and then one gets the bye
for first, yeah.
and then you go from there, and you're going to have to tighten it up. I don't think there should be any breaks in there, and maybe that 2-3 first goes Wednesday, Saturday, and then the following Saturday is the first leg of the conference final, and that might be a way. Then you factor in the bye week that they give anyway before MLS Cup final into the international break, and you're going to MLS Cup final. So you're ending basically this would be MLS Cup final right now, which used to be when it was.
Well, that would make sense, because if you have an international break, but the only game left in your league is the championship game, and like MLS Cup final, which is the one game the trophy is going to be handed for sure, yeah, you'll keep that momentum, because it's more a break for the players to rest, to make sure the knocks are gone, and to make sure you have a final quality game in the final, which is usually not the case. Last year was a game. It was kind of a game, and it was close. Penalties. It was close, but it wasn't like an entertaining soccer game. It wasn't fun to watch.
Nerve-wracking as a TFC.
It was cold.
So it's hard. Yeah. It's hard for me to objectively watch that game. Even I've never rewatched it.
No, who? Why? Why would you?
Why would I?
Why would you? There was no goals. It was literally no goals. It was like penalties at the end. That's the end. Yeah.
If there is in fact a repeat of the final, I will probably go back and rewatch it. Just enough time will have passed at that point that weekend will have been erased from the memory, and I want to see exactly how Seattle broke them down a little. Well, they didn't break them down. How Seattle didn't manage to allow, other than Stephen Fry.
I was going to say, because Seattle didn't shoot on net. That's something else.
Yeah. You know what? It seemed tenser in the stadium, and I guess that's just because every time they get into the final third, you go,
you're like, oh no, they're coming close, it's cold, I have to get up, I can't feel my legs.
Yeah, well, that's exactly, you probably had you did have a different view. I was in the South End, and as I said, it wasn't until after the game that I realized that Seattle didn't have a shot. During the game itself, it felt like Seattle had more chances than what the final stats put on. But then you think back and go, okay, yeah, I guess all the possession was wide, wasn't it? And they weren't committing men forward, and they were staying tight at the back. And that said, as much as the Altidore save, I can't believe we're talking about this game right now, but nonetheless.
Stephen Fry versus Josie Altidore save at the, 79th minute?
Yeah, well, no, it was in stoppage, was it not? Anyway.
Oh, yeah, it was close to stoppage time. Yeah, closer anyway.
Anyway. But if you remember, Josie had a second chance, and it was immediately off of kickoff, I think in the third minute, that flashed just wide. And that one haunts me as much as that first goal does. Because could you imagine if that goal goes in? First off, the crowd's amped beyond words at that point, because the game's just started, and they're all the opening ceremonies, which is what I do remember most of all, like the balloons and the fireworks and like oh my God, we're in the MLS Cup final stuff.
the trophy that's about like 10 stories high.
Yeah, and then you score. If they scored in the third minute, that's a completely different game. Woulda, coulda, shoulda. But nonetheless, if people remember that was interesting. So this is a long and evolved way to avoid talking about the nightmare scenario of DFC losing badly tonight. Alas. Yeah. I don't know, Kevin. I sort of gave my opinion yesterday. I don't know if we really got what you think is going to happen out there. So why don't I ask you how you see this series playing out?
This could be, depending on what happens this offseason, and depending if Columbus moves to Houston this offseason or the next one after, this could potentially be the last playoff game ever at MAPFRE Stadium, Columbus Crew Stadium. So I kind of wish Columbus puts a great performance, but I'm looking at this pragmatically too. And yeah, no Josie, no Altidore. Last time it happened, Toronto played a decent game, but they lost 5-3 at home. It was 5-1 against Montreal. It's the only blip this season, at home at least. Now they're on the road tonight for Toronto. They're in Columbus. They don't have Josie. They don't have Altidore. But they know they have him the next game. So it's not like you don't have them. It's like you just don't have them for the beginning of your series. So that aspect of, we don't have our best players, it's out of the questions. Because as a player for Toronto, they'll be back the next game. So you kind of have that, all right, our Wayne Gretzkys are coming next week. So we'll play out of our minds this week to make sure when they come back it'll be even easier. I wouldn't be shocked if Toronto scored like 3 goals tonight. Just because a Vasquez and company will step up, quote unquote. I'm going to use cliches because I always do. They're going to step up and take and fill the void of a Josie and a Giovinco. And I think Columbus Crew at home, will they really want to open up against a Toronto? Be like, oh, we have to take advantage of our home field and score 2-3. If you do that, you might be scored on. And if you scored on the road in a home and away series in the Eastern Conference Finals, guess what? You're going to lose.
Likely. Yeah, this is my one, and we said this to Rudy yesterday, my one kind of hope, I guess, for this is that is the tactical matchup, and that Columbus will want to play a little bit more front foot. And the thing is, if you play front foot against Toronto, you have the potential, even with guys like Josie and Javenko missing, you have the potential to get your ass handed to you.
Ricketts can score 2 goals in 2 minutes. We've seen this happen.
Yeah. I mean, Ricketts can score, and look, Vasquez can produce. A lot of players can pull up and produce something out of the blue. I think Toronto's going to go into this, looking to get the clean sheet. I think that will be their goal heading into this game. They have sort of struggled a little bit that way, although they only, they allowed that weird goal at the end of the first half against New York, and then obviously another weird goal. So they've allowed 2 fluke goals in this playoffs in many, many ways. I don't think you can replicate them, but still, they haven't had a clean sheet in a while, and that's, I think, something that they'll really be focusing on in this game to get out of there without allowing. And I think that they would be perfectly happy going back even 0-0 into Toronto. Ideally, though, that's going to depend on what Columbus does, and if Columbus does open up, this team, even without their best players, can strike. Columbus learned it, as I said, firsthand. 5-1 loss. That was in BMO.
Yeah.
I don't expect that tonight. That would be wonderful. That would make the next week really relaxing for TFC. The debate would be whether Jordan Hamilton's going to get a run out, not anything else. But at any rate, it's going to be an interesting competition. It's a very intriguing matchup. I'm going to say that. It's more intriguing than I would have anticipated back in August and September, simply because TFC has come back down a little bit and Columbus has played so well, and then you have the whole narrative behind it, and it makes for a fascinating matchup.
You know what it reminds me of, Duane?
What's that?
You know those big boxing fights or MMA fights back then, or even now, like a Mayweather-McGregor, where there's no contest. There's a clear favorite, then there's everybody else. But for like 2 months before that game or that fight, all you talk about is you trying to bring down the favorite and prop up the underdog so the matchup feels a little closer. I feel that's how I feel against Columbus and Toronto. Oh, the great yellow hype. You never know what can happen with Columbus. They'll finish 5-0 tonight, and we all know Toronto is he's gonna trample Columbus, move on, and win the MLS Cup. Because, well, Toronto's Oscar De La Hoya. Toronto's Mayweather, and Columbus or anybody else is just Trinidad or it's just McGregor.
Yeah, when the ball's around, any given Saturday or any given Tuesday, I guess in this case, all that sort of jazz. Tonight's the key, though. It really is. Columbus, if they're going to have a chance to win this series, needs to win tonight. And if they don't win tonight, I think that, I do think Toronto will have enough in that second leg, and particularly with the tactical matchup, as I said, which does favor them a little bit more. I do think the way to beat Toronto is the way that New York almost did and the way that Seattle did last year, is to play a little ugly, and I'm not sure Columbus will do that. So that is why intellectually I am less nervous than I am emotionally. But, it's been a long, strange journey when it comes to TFC, and this is just part of it. And if they were to lose this, as much as the season's been wonderful, it would take till February to sort of come back from that. And, the CCL would get you re-excited, and you'd be like, okay, well, let's just do it again. But, God, that just seems so daunting. I remember distinctly that we'll finish with this, and then we break, come back, talk a little Houston, Seattle, and Champions League.
Well, I have one more thing to say about Columbus before we get. No, finish your thought. I'll go after.
Well, I was going to say, it reminds me, I was at the ALCS in the Blue Jays against Cleveland. And I remember distinctly where I was about 20 feet back from where the final out was. And I remember just staring at Cleveland celebrating, another Ohio team, and thinking to myself, just being so depressed at that moment, because I just knew that there was just so much effort that would have to go in to get back to that point, and also kind of understanding that it was the end of something. And that's kind of how I think I'd feel if Toronto were to lose this series. Although I do think that regardless, unless they're completely decimated by, Javenko go back to Italy and Josie breaks his leg and Michael Bradley decides to take up painting or something, I think they are going to still be the favorite going into next season. But it just, you don't want to do that. You want to go in as the favorite to repeat, not the favorite to finally get it done.
Hashtag save the crew. We talk about the excitement in Columbus and the galvanization of the troop behind the Columbus Crew, and Well, the words of Dave Levesque of the Toronto Montreal, Duane. Yesterday was the eve of the Eastern Conference Final, the first game. There was 5 journalists. One of them was Dave from Montreal in Columbus. The other ones you could say were probably from Toronto. No TV, no radio. Yeah. Good job, Columbus. That really helps a lot.
Yeah, I think they only have one beat reporter. I know Larson and Molinaro are down there. So
you had Larson, Molinaro, Dave Levesque. Montreal, Toronto, in Columbus. You had 2 left. Maybe one of them was like Sarah or something from Toronto as well. So you had like one Columbus guy. No TV, no radio. How are you even supposed to make strides in your own market if you don't even dispatch journalists to the eve of the Eastern Conference Finals? Anyways.
Yeah, fair enough. And meanwhile, the MLS Cup final last year in Toronto, you were in that zoo. You saw how many people were there.
Duane, first practice in Montreal last year. That thing, there was 25 journalists. It's like people don't realize Montreal, Toronto, Vancouver to a smaller scale. But Montreal, Toronto, like, it's becoming big. Like, it's a lot of us now.
Yeah, no, I remember the MLS Cup final having. I spoke to Ricketts in the scrum, and he was kind of to the side because most of the guys were looking to get at Bradley or to,
of course,
drink. But so I just walked over to Ricketts. But even with Ricketts, there were still 3 or 4 of us around him. So that was how crazy it was last year at MLS Cup final. Well, that's the final, but still. At any rate, all right, let's take the break.
Get back and talk a little bit about Seattle and Houston.
You are listening to Soccer Today. Follow us on Twitter at Soccer Today SPN and like our Facebook page, facebook.com/Sports Podcasting Network.
I know you can't see the video, Duane, but I'm showing right now on my screen a brand new gift that I got yesterday. It's our second donation for the studio, and this one comes from Ottawa. The Bytown Boys SC sent me a nice little scarf. Come on, bring the noise. Le 12e joueur. Thank you for the gift, guys.
I'm looking at an Ottawa Fury scarf as we do this, so we're twinsies now. Yeah,
kind of. So like Junior,
I have
I'm
a lot
the
of
tallest
scarves
one, and you're
upstairs.
like, you're Daddy DeVito.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm Arnold.
I
you're
describe
Daddy.
my studio. It's got some Couple City scarves. I've got the Duane de Rosario scarf up there. I've got Colonia Reds right behind me. Yeah, there you go. And
a big banana
on the one side.
Yep. And don't forget the big banana, because they say when you have a big banana.
Yeah, a lot of Belleville Bulls memorabilia too. May they rest in peace.
All right. The Belleville Bulls? Yeah, I don't know them.
There you go. I actually have a Trenton Bobcats hockey jersey here too. They've been dead since like the 80s. So,
the only hockey jersey I truly want now is like the Mighty Ducks jersey from the movie. You know, the green one with like the duck in front and Charlie Conway in the back and number 68.
Yeah, that's fun. I think that you could probably find that on eBay, but
yeah, it's like $200. I'm not gonna spend anything on it.
All right, let's talk about Seattle and Houston a little bit here.
Houston, Duane, 12-1-4 at home this season. One of the hottest team to play the hottest stadium, hottest city in Houston. Their home record this year is the second best in Major League Soccer. Only lost once. Yeah, it's a team that, yes, it's almost a meme and a trope at this point that they don't travel well. They actually negated that in the previous round. So, I don't know. It'll be interesting tomorrow night. Seattle, Houston. Seattle's a bit older, unfortunately, than last year. Yes, everybody's a 1 year older than last year. But what I mean, they have Dempsey, which wasn't the case last year at this time. I don't know. It's actually a closer matchup than in the East, for sure.
Yeah, and look, Rudy's answer yesterday, I thought was good. The counterattacking sort of nature of this is going to make this an interesting series as well. Obviously, here in Toronto, there's not been a lot of attention placed on this, so it's difficult to get into it. And it's only been, in the last day or two that I really started to sit down and think about this. And Houston has a chance to win this, absolutely. But I think, like I said with Columbus a moment ago, the key is tonight. They need to get the win in the first leg. That's absolute, and that is necessary. And it's going to be tough for them to win MLS Cup final because they really are going to need to. They're going to need to destroy, to shoot the meme in the head, basically. That's really a crass analogy, but especially in the States right now. So let's ignore I said that. They're going to need to bury that analogy completely and have the have that away form completely turn around if they're going to win the whole thing, because that would require them to win 2 straight home road games probably, or at least not lose badly enough in that second one or the first one, and then absolutely outright win the MLS Cup final, because it will either be in Toronto or Columbus. So it's going to be tough for them, and a very warm weather team moving into northern hemispheres for that final would be something that would be difficult for them to overcome as well. They have a lot of sort of Latin players in that team. But against Seattle, a Seattle team that I have not ever been completely convinced of this year, although I have been convinced of them in the West, I haven't been convinced of them as being amongst the elite teams. So I do give Houston more than a puncher's chance tonight, or puncher's chance, I should say. I give them maybe a 60-40 in favor of Seattle, whereas I'd go 80-20 in the other series, Kevin.
Yeah, I would kind of agree with those statistics. When I'm looking at Houston, if I was Seattle, what would worry me is Akubo Torres and Alex and the new crop of threats that they've been developing in 2017. I just go back to the beginning of the season, where we all expected Houston to not pan out just because of the Kubo Torres of the years before, where it never really panned out, and he was a bit, I don't want to say diva, because it's not the right term at all. It's kind of a terrible term nowadays, but he had that little blockage, mental blockage, that he didn't want to be the only solution for Houston, and had to be surrounded, had to be supported a bit better by his teammates to make sure that they grow together. And this year, with the arrival of Alex and other great players of Houston, the attack-minded trio, especially for Houston, you've seen a growth in this team. You've seen a growth of what they can do offensively. You've seen a big difference in tactics as well. And I think the fact that Kubo Torres now is only still young, but he's getting to a point where a trophy's close to be playing for, I think they're not going to let this opportunity go. As much as we're talking about a Seattle-Toronto FC redo of last year's MLS Cup, don't count out Houston. If there's one team out of the 4 that can surprise us, I think it's Houston. I think Houston can find a way to break down Seattle tomorrow night enough in Houston that maybe their lead will be good enough to hold in Seattle.
Well, this is, you get into this is why I like the home and homes, and as much as I don't think it gives enough advantage to the higher seed, as I said in the first block, I do enjoy it from a purely competitive standpoint, because it adds some intrigue to it. If Houston were to win 3-0 tonight, then that second leg is, that's a big deal, right? You're going to have, or even if they win 2-0, like that's an interesting scenario. In fact, that's maybe the perfect scoreline if the underdog wins the first leg 2-0, because then the home team has a really interesting proposition in that second leg. They
need to open up, but you can't open up too much. You can't go on the front foot too much, because what if the other team scored? Then you have to score 3 more.
Screw. Yeah. Well, that's always a fascinating tactical battle to me. The 2-0 down is really, you should be able to beat a team 2-0 at home. That's not that absurd. But when you start out having to do that, it can be mentally really, really hard to overcome. So that's something you have to watch out for. But we're speculating now to stuff that hasn't happened yet. Tonight is going to be the key for Houston to get, I think, at least a 2-goal win in this one.
Tomorrow for Houston.
Scoreboard.
Just to be fair, if you're looking for the Seattle-Houston game, it's tomorrow night. And tonight is...
Oh, sorry. It's next week. They're the same day, yes.
Yeah, exactly. Then next week is Wednesday and Thursday. So they got a week in between.
Fair enough. All right. So lots of time to watch that sort of stuff tonight. But we go, what we can watch today? This is an awkward segue, but but I'll do it anyway. What we can watch today for sure is the Champions League. Give the music queued up. No, never mind. Here, subscribers.
Yeah, sorry about that. Hope nobody tuned out.
If you subscribe to patreon.com through us, we will promise to never sing again. A donation of $5 a month will guarantee no singing on the podcast.
Thanks, Duane.
All right, but I was including myself in that.
Okay. Cool.
All right,
because I know a good singer, so we can have her to sing on the show.
That's fair enough. Fair enough. All right, today looking at these games, not a lot jumping out. I think Besiktas Porto is interesting because for the competitiveness. I obviously was going to watch Feyenoord City. City can clinch the group today outright. So that will be something that they'll be looking to do to continue that perfect run.
Sevilla, Liverpool. Can Liverpool go to Sevilla? Like, I feel this game's going to be exciting to watch. Sevilla, Liverpool.
Rematch of the Europa League final from 2 years ago too.
Yeah, true. Dortmund, Tottenham. That's kind of a big matchup today.
Yeah, it is. It's a big matchup that's coming off two teams that, Dortmund's not playing very well. So there's that. And then Spurs coming off that 2-0 loss to Arsenal, which still makes me chuckle. That's so Spursy.
We didn't talk about it this week so far because we had like other stuff going on since yesterday and today. But yeah, what happened there? How can Arsenal? What happened there?
It's just Spursy. I have a good friend who's an Arsenal fan, and she's from a family of all Spurs fans. And so she was laughing her off the other day, telling me about her call back to England. She's English, and how her family was. They normally call her immediately after. I watched the City Arsenal game with her, and they called her within 2 minutes of the final kickoff to make fun of her because City had lost or beat them. So she returned the favor, I guess, on Saturday. I wasn't there, but I returned the favor on Saturday. So I was having a chuckle about that. Nonetheless, it's look. I don't know what to make of that game today, the Spurs Dortmund game, because Dortmund's been playing so poorly, but Spurs again, you never do know.
It's Spurs on the road.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they have sort of ended their Wembley curse, but
yes. That's a good thing because they're playing in Wembley all season. So if the curse would have stayed, it would have been a difficult season for Tottenham. But what surprised me, I always love to see those European games in Dortmund. That atmosphere, that there's always a Tifo party. There's always a Tifo show. Can't wait to see it today, what it looks like at 2:45. It's going to be a big one, too. Remember, when Dortmund plays against big teams, usually, at least in the stands, the spectacle is equal to the height of the teams they're facing. I wouldn't be surprised to see a very impressive Tifo today. If Dortmund.
There's a Champions League of Tifo making, Dortmund would absolutely win it every year. There's no doubt about that. So.
Oh, maybe Galatasaray. I remember one of them a few years ago with the devil coming down from like the ceiling. It was quite impressive. But yeah, Dortmund is tough to beat.
Yes, exactly. Well, you're just looking at this on the term, in terms of what the competitive balance is. Dortmund 2 points. They could be eliminated today. If Spurs win this outright, well, they probably will be eliminated today because Real Madrid is playing Apple.
Real Madrid will win today. That's for sure.
So that's 10 points there. So if Dortmund, with one game to play, this could be it for them today. And
they could not even qualify for the Europa League. Like, it's that bad. They could finish third of their group with 2 points.
Yeah, they need to win today if they're going to make the Europa League. You would think that would put them on 5. So at least they wouldn't be going to that final group stage with the danger they would clinch if that were to happen and Real Madrid were to win. So they would at least be guaranteed playing European football in the winter. And I think that a club like Dortmund, if they turn things around, could be considered one of the favorites to go ahead and win the Europa League. That would be, something that they would probably want to focus on to guarantee themselves that Champions League spot for next year. And that has, as an aside, that's added a lot to the Europa League. I always love the Europa League for the pure hipster nature of it, but let's be fair here. Yeah. Adding the Champions League bonus to it has made sort of bigger clubs on the outs take more attention to it. Like, you can guarantee that Milan is going to really play hard in the Europa League all year because there's no other way they're getting a Champions League spot, right?
Man United would not have prioritized the Europa League last year if it didn't mean Champions League football this year.
Yeah,
they would have prioritized the league.
For sure, and that is allowed them to recruit well and allowed them to maintain. Which, had they not had Champions League football, they would have struggled to try and continue that. And you look at the Milan project, which is stumbling a little bit out of the gate. If they can win Europa League, which they're still, they're winning their group right now, and you'd have to think if they get to the knockout stage and start to gel a little bit that they would be among the favorites. That would be something that would absolutely be vital for that project too to continue moving forward. Because really, as great as that club is in its historical context, it's been a while now since they were among the best teams in the world, and they need this anymore because players have short memories. And as much as Milan has a greater history than, say, PSG or City, PSG and City are the places to go now as compared to them, and they're going to need something like that to continue on with that. Another CanCon note today too: Besiktas can qualify with a win over Porto, 10.6 right now. They can clinch that spot. That would be something I think that would be great for Tifo Hutchison, and we're all cheering for that. to see him in a round of 16 in the Champions League would be something that would be very exciting. I hope he doesn't draw City. Well, maybe I kind of do. I don't know.
Well, it depends. You want to see him play? Because if you do, you kind of want to. But otherwise,
yeah, I don't want to have to cheer against him. But
yeah, it's not fun. Speaking of Canada, let's finish the show with two Canadian women's national team notes. Duane, there's a comeback. There's two big comebacks, actually. And it's 18 months in the making. Goalkeeper Erin McLeod back with the Canadian women's national team after a terrible knee injury.
Yeah, and you cheer for her. Labe is a good keeper, and I don't.
She's
think
grown.
that,
She's grown leaps and bounds since Erin McLeod first got injured. But it's always good to have Erin McLeod back.
No, absolutely, and this is nice for her to try and make that comeback again. She's going to have to overcome Labe for the number one. I don't think this is a situation where she'll jump right in. That said, if they play some friendlies in the near future, and we haven't heard anything yet.
Well, there's Norway. There's Norway that's coming. That's why we have the rosters for the Canadian national team in Norway.
Yeah, they'll also be at Algarve in February. But
and there's Amy Pietrangelo as well from Laval, who is appearing on the roster. So another moment that is fueled by determination, that's fueled by overcoming injuries, that's fueled by overcoming non-selections before. It's always fun to see dedication and hard work being paid off, either if it's from injury, coming back from injury, or from non-selection, and all. Good job on the two ladies, women.
What I will say about John Herdman over the last 2 years or so is that he has shown a complete acceptance and embracing of giving players a chance, and giving players a second chance, and giving young players a chance. And I think that that's something that's going to benefit the program long term for sure. For too long, the women's national team has been a closed shop. That goes doubly so in the United States, by the way, but it's been kind of the same in both countries. And I think that having more of an open competitive approach to national team spots is going to be healthier down the road. And part of that was by necessity too, because there were so few players. It's self-perpetuating because it's a closed shop. Those players are the ones getting the opportunities to continue to play, and because they continue to play at a top level, they continue to get the call-ups. Whereas now, especially amongst the younger players, you're seeing them play more and more and getting more opportunity. And this is another reason why it is really necessary for the NWSL to expand into Canada sooner rather than later, for Canada to force the hand of the NWSL to expand into Canada is what I think would need to happen here. And also for leagues like League One Ontario to continue to develop and continue to provide those young players with an opportunity to hone those skills. L1O is not necessarily going to be feeding the national team anytime soon, but I think it has a role to play in feeding the teams that feed the national team, if that makes sense. And you need to continue to have that development moving forward. And in your backyard, we'd really like to see a women's program there. Rather than later as well.
Well, literally in my former backyard in Laval, I want to see the comment back, but I would love to see a Montreal team as well. Speaking of, we haven't talked about this last week, was announced once again the intentions of the PLSQ to have a women division starting probably next year, or at least in 2019. So for the PLSQ, the Quebec equivalent of League One Ontario, the semi-pro / Division 3 in Canada, well, maybe we'll have a women division. Maybe my Comets will come back.
All right, and on that note, let me just make a note to all the Voyageurs listening out there, and I do know that we have a lot of regular listeners that would consider themselves Voyageurs. Back 15 years ago or so, a little bit longer, we banded together to create a Vanier Cup. Vanier Cup, Jesus, where'd that come from?
Yeah, I know where you're going. You've got my money if you need.
You said Laval, that's why. A Voyageurs Cup for the men. Maybe it's time we do something similar for the women that can be played between the PLSQ champions and League One Ontario champions to create a Voyageurs Cup for women. And that's something that I would have loved. I'd love to see, and you'd hope down the line that eventually more clubs could get involved in such a thing like that. You got to factor in money and things like that, but there used to be that Interprovincial Cup, which is now being replaced by the Voyageurs Cup play-out on the men's side. So. Yeah. Why not continue and replicate that? And I'm sure that Mr. Rossi has that in the back of his mind too. And
I'm sure we can get something done. I'm sure we can get Dino and Kamzi and make sure they they would sanction that trophy. I think we got something here, Duane. I think hashtag VCupW.
The WV Cup.
WV Cup.
Like that. All right, that's my final note. Go City, go to CFC. Anyway,
tomorrow I'll talk about CFC tomorrow. They're traveling to Baku, so they're going to Azerbaijan to score a few goals, and that will be fun to watch tomorrow. Today,
sorry, Kevin. Maybe real quickly we should put a trial balloon out on what we're thinking of doing too in terms of the show.
True.
Yeah, folks, I know that there's been a lot of subscribers out there that originally came to Kevin and I through our show 5 Rings. It has been on hiatus for a while now, and that has to just simply do with time. I'm working a second job. Kevin works nights. It's just really difficult for us to find any more time than, the 5 hours a week that we currently give this. And it's more than 5 hours, too, because Kevin has to set the technical side up and I have to set the editorial side up. And so you're really looking at 7-8 hours a week dedication to this show. So it's difficult to throw another one in there. But what we're going to do in the lead up to Pyeongchang is we're going to very likely, I think we've almost concluded that this is going to happen, replace one Soccer Today a week with a 5 Rings. And in that 5 Rings context, we will include international soccer talk, beach soccer talk, futsal soccer talk, something that's a little outside of our normal range that sort of fits the 5 Rings mold. So you will still get 5 days a week of soccer talk. Just one of them will be approached in a slightly different way and will be attached to an Olympic show in the lead up, as I said, to the Olympics. So that's kind of where we're going with that. I'm not sure what day a week we'll do it. Obviously, this week's going to be tough because we have a lot of MLS to sort of cover, and we're going to always make sure that the soccer stuff gets covered out there if there's something breaking or important that happens.
Mm-hmm. But starting at least next week, our 5 Rings Road to Pyeongchang series will start.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. We're committed to this now. I think we just committed to it live on the air. So there you go. But as I said, we'll attach some soccer to that and we'll continue to give you all your soccer coverage. And during the Olympics itself, you'll get 5 Rings daily and
maybe some Soccer Today. We'll see.
Probably a bit of a 2-week break on Soccer Today during that time because I'm still recovering from Rio. At any rate.
Rio was tough, man. It wasn't just the Olympics. It was everything else surrounding it. And guess what? We're going to Korea. So it's not going to necessarily be better.
No, yeah. Well, we'll live on the air when the world ends. It'll be great.
It'll be great. Right. Like, what's that alarm? What's that siren here? What's going on?
I'd like to thank everyone for listening.
And we're
Soccer Today. Mic out. Drop the mic. Away we go.
Oh, I need to cue up the Doomsday song then. You know, the famous Doomsday song that like NBC and all those radio stations would play if it's the end of the world. I have to get it. You know, you never know.
Fair enough. All right, we're always keeping things on the upbeat here.
The world is a beautiful place.
It's fine.
It's fine. The room is burning. It's fine. Until tomorrow, as always, you can follow Duane on Twitter at 24th Minute and myself at Kev Laramee. We'll be back tomorrow with some Champions League, with some TFC crew review. And until then, have a great soccer.
You can find the podcast version of all the shows we do on iTunes, Apple Podcast, Google Play Store, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, and anywhere you get your podcast.